let's talk about long distance real estate investing for a minute and my thoughts on whether or not I would go through the process again. What's prompting me to talk about this is that I recently shared a video about my property. I am in between tenants right now, and it's a good chunk of money to fix repairs and get it rent ready for the next tenant. I shared that, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions on how to handle the situation the most financially sensible way. For background information, I'm in New England. In 2021, I bought my first rental property, and it was a long distance investment. It is out in the Midwest, and it has been a very unique challenge. There's probably plenty of people that think, why would you ever do that? And I understand. Trust me, I have received a lot of inquisitive comments because it was a bit challenging. The whole process has had plenty of ups and downs, but at the end of the day, it has been a wonderful learning experience as far as getting into real estate investing, experiencing that firsthand, and all of the ups and downs that go with it. And I specifically wanted to go through that process because I very much thought that real estate investing and owning rental properties and having rental income was going to help be the thing that will help me escape the 9-to-5 life and reduce my reliance on a W-2 job. Where I am in New England, finding real estate in my price range is incredibly difficult, which is why I went elsewhere. I bought a 3-bed, 1-bath, single-family home. I worked with a company that specifically works with long-distance real estate investors. They research areas, find areas where there's strong rent growth while also offering relatively cheaper real estate than some of the more expensive areas in the country. So it offers kind of the liaison between people who live in expensive areas and want to invest in real estate but can't necessarily afford what's around them and want to look in other areas. So they provide real estate agents, rental brokers, contractors, property management team, like the whole kit and caboodle in a specific area. So they buy properties, fix them up, and essentially flip them for real estate investors. But the idea is they're making money but still offering properties that are reasonable prices for investors. So I found this house for $73,000, and without all the extraneous detail, it was a long closing. It took 9 months because 2021 was pretty well the height of the real estate craziness that the pandemic brought about, and it just was a messy process. Everyone was insanely busy who was involved in real estate, and there was just things that were happening that just were not the best scenario. Towards the end of that 9-month period, I found out I was inheriting a tenant that had stopped paying rent several months before. I got lucky. The judge ordered him to leave. I guess he couldn't prove that COVID had been the exact reason for him losing his job, so he was not sheltered by the eviction moratoriums that were happening at that time. So I got lucky in that aspect, but he ended up leaving me with about $12,000 worth of damages, repairs, trash removal, lawn maintenance, and just so much that had to be done to get it ready for the next tenant. So that was a big chunk of money, and it was okay. I was compensated for that in the purchase price. Throughout that 9-month process, I think the seller realized that, like, oh no, I need to get out of this like quick, or the new buyer might back out because of the tenant situation. But they just, like, I was not aware of the tenant situation until a couple weeks before closing, I think. But they kept dropping the price throughout that 9 months. So all in all, I bought a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house for $45,000. Like, really, really cheap. And yeah, obviously a home at that price, even at $73,000, it's had issues. Last year in 2023, in the middle of the year, summertime, I replaced the HVAC unit because the old furnace system was just dilapidated and it kept tripping off on the new tenant, who actually had a 2-year lease in there. That tenant just moved out at the end of January. Last week, I shared that the cost to me to get it rent ready after her move out was going to be just under $4,500. And a big chunk of that, $2,200 specifically, is to repaint and scrape off a bunch of spray foam that she had sprayed all around cracks and windows and things like that. So it's a huge expense to paint. There's plenty of other things that need to be, not plenty, but there's light fixtures that need to be fixed. There's a cracked window that needs to be fixed. Light bulbs, replace a vanity, things like that just happen as normal wear and tear of a rental. Some of it normal, some of it okay, like that's a bit more than just normal wear and tear, but it is what it is. So a lot of you have had a lot of suggestions on how to handle that and have had very strong feelings about the expense that this home is costing me. So I just kind of wanted to weigh in on that a little bit and answer some of the questions, just because it's a lot to like retype all of the same information over and over again. So I wanted to give a more thorough explanation here. So in light of the spray foam situation and just the fact that it's going to cost me quite a bit to repair that, it is frustrating, but it's also is what it is. So the last couple weeks I've just been working on getting the vendors scheduled and getting them in there, ironing out exactly what needs to be fixed. I asked to hold off on a lot of things that they had on the original quote. There was just quite a few things that were not necessary on there. So I just scaled it down to the necessary items, and $2,200 of that is spray foam removal and painting. On top of that, I've also been working with a rental broker who's part of the property management team. He is screening new tenants and showing the property to get a new tenant in there. And so he has this one tenant that he was very excited about. It's actually a couple. He gave them the okay the other day before I told him it was okay to tell them that yeah, they could move into the property. I've already had conversations with him and I don't know why he did that, but I made it very clear that I don't know when the work will be done. So I don't know if they'll be able to move in, but they went ahead and gave their current landlord a 10-day notice, which is confusing in itself, but it has obviously, all of this has spurred up a lot of questions from you guys. So I'm just going to go through them one by one, or at least kind of the main theme questions that you guys had or concerns. One of them being the fact that they did give a 10-day notice and that is a red flag, and why do they have to be out in 10 days? Trust me, guys, I understand. Yes, that is a red flag. Also, I don't know what the circumstances are of their current situation. Maybe they're in a short term. Maybe they're in an Airbnb. Maybe they're not locked in a long-term lease. Like, I'm not here. Yes, it's a red flag to have someone move out in 10 days. But again, I don't know their circumstances yet. I have not received their background checks yet. And so to answer some other of your questions, yes, of course, I'll be doing a thorough background check on them like I do every tenant. And yes, I've had issues, like these little communication issues with the property management team, but they do not get final say over who gets to live in my property. I do. And until I get those background checks and feel okay about their situation, as well as like a clear explanation of how and why they gave a 10-day notice to their current landlord. And I don't even know if my property is going to be ready in that 10-day window. They might not even be able to move into my property at all. They might have to find something else. So nobody panic. Yes, it's sketchy. Yes, I will be asking more questions. Yes, I will be doing thorough background checks as anybody would. The biggest thing that most people suggested was that I just go out there and paint it myself and save the $2,200. And like, guys, I hear you. However, when you factor in either I'm flying out there or I'm driving, that's either a plane ticket or a bunch of gas to get there and back and wear and tear on my car. So if I fly, I'm going to need a rental car to get around. I've never been there before. I would not know where I'm going or what I'm doing. I would have to pay to stay somewhere in a hotel. Like, I don't have a bed there. I wouldn't have anything there. I would be paying for gas, rental car, 3 meals a day, eating out, hotel room, plus paint supplies. Like, that's a pretty large upfront cost when you don't have paintbrushes, rollers, stirrers, even bare minimum. Plus step ladders if they're repainting all the trim as well. I can't reach that just standing on the floor. There's so much upfront costs that would come with that. I can't imagine that the cost savings to do that myself would be worth me going through all of that hassle. Even though like it's a relatively smaller, I think 3-bed, 1-bath home, I'm guessing the whole process would take me probably a week. That is not cheap when you're adding up hotel rooms and meals out and things like that. It doesn't make sense to me. And plus the vendor still has to go there anyway. They probably charge me several $100 just to walk in the front door. Like, I know how this process works. I love all you guys for thinking outside the box, and I totally hear you. Again, if the property were here and I had my eyes on it, I would totally be doing all of that myself. I understand, like, that could be a cost savings, but not when you factor in all of the logistics that would go into getting me out there. I hope that makes sense. It just doesn't make financial sense to me at all. And plus, even though I'm currently unemployed, I'm not just sitting here doing nothing. I still have to be actively applying to jobs every week. I'm still having interviews, things like that. So I'm not just sitting here idle either. About the spray foam in general, like, some of you are very angry about it, and I love you guys so much. I get it. Or what I'm guessing happened is the new HVAC system probably is a lot stronger of a pull than the old shitty furnace, right? So I understand why she was feeling some drafts probably that maybe weren't there before. Totally get that. There's probably a much larger pressure differential in the home when the new HVAC system is kicking on. It's probably having a larger suction than the old machine because it's a new, tight, enclosed system. I'm not surprised at all that it changed the dynamic of flow of air coming into the home in places where maybe it hadn't been before. It's a little bit of an older home, like cracks and things happen, and so, okay, she sealed them up, and yeah, it looks kind of like hell, but whatever, like, it'll be fixed. These things are kind of to be expected when you're changing major home system components like the HVAC system. So that's probably why she spray foamed. As I mentioned, yes, I am keeping her whole security deposit. I'm guessing she's not going to fight me on that. I'm pretty sure she probably knew that before she spray foamed, and I'm pretty sure she also didn't give a shit because she was a housing assistance program tenant, so she didn't pay the security deposit anyway, so not a big deal. And yes, I could legally pursue her for the rest of the charges, like many of you had mentioned as well, but if we recall, the shitty tenant from the beginning, right? That $12,000 I had to spend because that jerk left so many holes in the, like, intentional holes in the walls and molding trash everywhere. Like, completely disgusting, very obviously intentful to be a piece of crap. So yes, in that case, I did opt to pursue charges, and I told you guys that, and they told me that the only way I would ever hear from them on the whole process, which they told me it would likely take years and probably never have an outcome. I will probably never hear from them. The only way I would hear from them is if they made progress and were able to get some kind of compensation from that shitty tenant. And it's been almost 2.5, 3 years now, and I've not heard a peep. So I don't hold a lot of hope for pursuing legal charges above and beyond a security deposit. Such a minimal likelihood of recouping that cost for legal fees that would probably cost way more than the additional charges. So I hope all that kind of makes sense to help explain my thought process on the rental situation and why I'm not like super upset about it. I'm just like, okay, that kind of stinks, but is what it is. You cannot go into real estate investing without understanding the risk, specifically long distance, and the insane dynamic that not ever putting eyes on the property presents. It's definitely not that I don't recommend it by any means. I'm so glad I've gone through this process. I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad I ripped the band-aid of real estate investing, and it's been a huge learning curve that I'm happy I went through, to be perfectly honest. And I feel like I'm saying that all of this like I no longer have the property. I do, and I do plan to hang on to it for a bit longer, at the very least long enough to get a new tenant in there and get it stabilized and get myself through my own personal unemployment, finding a new job, relocating somewhere else, hopefully. Like, there's so much in my personal life that needs my mental focus right now. So I hope this explains more of where my thoughts are at with that whole scene. The property has cash flowed pretty dang nicely for me the last couple of years. Unfortunately, yeah, there have been big ticket items that have just like really eaten that cash flow back down to zero, like the HVAC system. And now these rent ready to repairs to get it ready for the next. And luckily, there's been pretty good rent growth in the last couple years that the previous tenant was in there. So the cash flow is going to be even better going forward. And so it's going to recoup these new rent ready costs fairly quickly, like in the next probably 3 to 5 months. So it's not a big deal. The thing that's really been on my side in this whole process is the value of the property. The value has doubled since I bought it, and it's pretty well stayed there. And now obviously that could change at any moment with the real estate market. So nothing is for certain, but I feel very strongly that that value add to the property is going to come in very handy for me someday. I don't know if I'm going to hang on to this property for the long term, but luckily I don't have to. I always thought that I was going to, but over time, you know, the headaches add up, and I just feel my life in general moving in a different direction of just wanting to simplify, live a simple, peaceful life, away from worrying about amassing wealth and money and cash flow, and just scaling way back on my need for more money so that I can scale way back on the mental cost of attaining and making more money. And real estate is a part of that picture for me. At this point, I'm feeling like maybe that value add of that property could be used in a better way to help me get to that simple life that I want. So my whole direction of thinking has certainly changed as time has gone on, and that's life, totally normal and okay. I think it's really important to reevaluate your priorities in life direction every so often, especially when life shoves you in a new direction that you've just been putting off for too long, which has certainly been the case for myself. So I don't know what the future holds, but I definitely wanted to give an update to this whole long distance real estate investing perspective. I feel like I've always talked about it from a positive light, other than sharing the negatives of the downfalls when the property needs money, but that's part of the nature of the beast as well. So it's no big deal. So yeah, the story continues on the rental property. Hopefully this helps. Thank you guys so much for watching. I always appreciate you guys being invested in my story, invested in the things that happen to me, good, bad, and ugly. And I am so appreciative of you guys just tuning in to follow along. So thank you so much. I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Bye.